Well, maybe we should get things rolling here, and I'm sure we'll have more people joining us. Oh, and it looks like our head of school, Doug Key, is here.
Oh, nice. Hey, Doug.
Okay. So I want to welcome Adam Brodsley here, class of 1985. Um, Adam co-founded Volume Inc. at the dawn of the new millennium, which admittedly sounds like a long time ago. He has since served as principal and creative director of Volume Inc., which is a celebrated design studio working at the intersection of visual communication, experience design, and architecture. His broad range of expertise and experience is connected by the desire to engage people through the power of design, whatever the method, whatever the medium, but especially in the physical world we inhabit. Adam is a graduate of the esteemed Art Center College of Design in Los Angeles, and he holds a BA in communications from UC Santa Barbara. He is a Northern California native, and I'm about to hand it over to Adam here. And like I mentioned, we'd love to have you guys ask any questions you might have. Just use the Q&A box down there, and we'll loop back to the questions at the end so Adam can go through his presentation. So Adam, it's
Oh,
all
all
you.
right. All right, great. Well, thanks, Bella. Thanks for having me today. And I guess the first question is, where did the last 35 years go? I got to say that I like the class of 95 idea better. But anyway, I also know that all of us have probably a lot of Zoom fatigue, and there's a lot of other options of things to be doing on a Saturday afternoon. But so thanks again for being here. Um, I'm just going to kind of go through, I'm going to share my screen and go through a little bit of the work we've done and some of the thinking that goes behind that. So with that, I'm going to fumble here for a brief moment. And just give me 1 second here. Now, uh-oh. Bear with me. Technology. The good thing is, even with, I know we work with Google, and even with them, half the meeting time we have is used up trying to get people to get on the call. So, can you see my screen there?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. Okay. All right. So great. So here we are, a class of 85. There's me in the back. There's down in front there. We've got Dr. Lee, um, who looks like she was leading the band at the time, which I think was probably pretty accurate. And I think this alumni weekend, I've missed a lot of the alumni reunions, and I think this weekend being put together, gave me a chance to think back on my time there and really think about actually how valuable that was and how important and formative those years were for me personally, and I think probably everyone in this picture. There's actually quite a few or a number of other graphic designers. There's Howard Mott up in the upper left there, and Mara Esterbu with the classic asymmetrical 80s haircut in the front center there. But just going back to this, I mean, it's just amazing. I don't know where the 35 years have gone, but I think even at this time, I thought I'd be an artist, and I know much to the chagrin of my parents, maybe at the time, suggesting that I should be thinking about, maybe law school or medical school. Um, it's interesting. I ended up kind of making it halfway there and kind of getting into design, which is somewhere between art and commerce. And so this is kind of where it all began. And so fast forwarding to today, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the work that we do at our studio. And I thought it's kind of nice to see um, the working environment. And granted, this is actually our last office. I don't have images of our current office, but we're a small studio. Um, and the other thing I'd say about today is just given the times we're going through, it feels a little strange to be talking about design maybe and sort of what may be perceived as surface issue items. But, I think in terms of our work, we've always really worked very closely with organizations whose mission we really believe in and hope that we can help them with what we do to further their goals. And I think a lot of the organizations that we've worked with have had a pretty strong impact on the communities where they work. And so, for example, here on the left, this Flora Grub Gardens is a nursery in the San Francisco area that, beyond being a nursery, it became this kind of community gathering spot where there's a cafe, they have lectures, and they really kind of bring a community together. On the right there, 5M is a real estate development that welcomes the existing community where they're coming in to build, bringing new housing and office space and a public park that typically real estate developments, we all hear about how they push out the existing communities that could no longer afford to be there. This was a really important mantra for these guys to keep the community there. On the left here, we've done work and believe in a lot of cultural organizations. Yerba Buena Center for the Arts is a contemporary arts organization. And this was some work we did for them that really turned the focus not on the art hanging on the walls, but on the visitors themselves and the feelings inside their heads as they experience the art. And then on the right, there is the Girls Leadership Organization, which is a nonprofit focused on teaching girls, young girls, school-age girls, self-empowerment and how to use the power of their voice. And I think if any of you have young girls in your lives in any way, I think that's an organization that's really worth taking a look at. And then even workplace environments. This was for a new office for Google down in Los Angeles, and how do we tell a story that's very site specific to Google's office here and just doesn't feel like the typical brand that's consistent no matter where you are. And this was actually Howard Hughes used this old hangar as where he was building the Spruce Goose airplane in the 40s. And that in the background there is a kind of the ghost of that plane made from thousands of tiny spheres hanging from the ceiling. And here's another view of that where we worked with a lot of artists to come in and create murals. And we did some wayfinding you see there on the ground as well. And then the California Academy of Sciences, how do you talk about evolution and teach science to both the novice that doesn't know anything about it, but also give enough depth there for the expert so the expert gets something. And then maybe one of the somewhat simplest but most powerful pieces of work we did recently was for Bloomberg at their Washington, D.C. news and media office. And one aspect of this job was we etched the First Amendment to the United States Constitution into the floor, and it went around the entire perimeter of the building where all the journalists and news people sat. And in this, it was in the beginning of 2016, which was a very politically charged time, but also the press was really under attack. And this, having this First Amendment, part of which talks about freedom of the press, etched in the floor in marble around the perimeter of the building, it became this sort of protective moat for the journalists. And so every time they have world leaders or politicians come through there, this is something they always walk them through and show them and talk about. And it's, I feel like for me personally, this became a very successful piece because it went beyond just Bloomberg as a company. And so, I think when we talk about our work, it's not just the visual eye candy. I think for us, it's an expression of an idea or a trigger for an experience for or some emotion for people. And so it's not these sort of specific media that we work in, but it's really the ideas and how we get people to feel something. And I think the way that that's done is answering this question. We try to answer this for every project we do, and it's all of us are in a busy world. Everyone's trying to always get our attention or sell us something or tell us something. It's if we can do work that answers this question, I think our projects become successful. And this is a great example of that. This is just for that Yerba Buena Center of the Arts project. This was a wall that's on the street facing San Francisco SF MoMA. And we just happened to capture this couple taking a picture of themselves in front of that work that's showing all these heads of visitors experiencing the art and all the emotions inside your head. And that was really seeing people that really cared about the work and what the museum is doing itself. And so now I just thought I'd show you a quick video here. The sound may be bad. It's not important if you can't hear it. It's just kind of as Bella said, a jazzy drum beat. So that's kind of a quick blast of some of the polished, finished work. But I think what's interesting is how we get there. A lot of people always want to know how we get there, and I always wish that there was a simple 3-step, 5-step process that we could go through every time. It would be easy. We could do that process, and we get the great results. But unfortunately, I think there isn't any repeatable process like that. We do have a process, but I think sometimes my partner and I think about it more as informed alchemy, where there's certainly a lot of research and digging deep in the subject matter. But at the end of the day, there's also that sort of little bit of magic that has to happen, and it's magic. So right before a project that I thought would be interesting to show is right before the pandemic hit, we were asked by the University of Kentucky to show our work in their 5,000 square foot gallery space. And I think for us, it was a little weird because we do design work, which is meant to be out in the world and being used, and not really hung on a wall behind glass. That's not really what our work does. And so we really thought about, well, wouldn't it be interesting to sort of do an exhibit about our process? And so here in this image, you can see we surrounded all the walls in the space with these 11 by 17 pieces of orange paper that just had sketches and process from working through all our projects, which we then overlaid with some of our philosophy. So here you see it's not problems, they're not problems, they're opportunities. So kind of reframing. And in the center of the space, we hung this banner that instead of showing any of the finished work, it's all just text. It's all ideas that inform the visual solution. And I think with our designers that work with us, that's something that we always ask them to do is write out your idea in a sentence, no visuals, just explain the idea to me in one sentence. And so that's kind of what this is. And so what happened then was with your phone, you could scan all these idea text messages, typography, and it would, with this augmented reality, it would sort of overlay the finished visual on there. And this is something that we always like to do in our work too. Anytime there's an opportunity to kind of create a dialogue or some sort of interaction with a visitor or an audience, I think it's really so rewarding and much more successful. And so there's a couple other images there. And then we also created this video room, and the idea in this room was what's going on in all of our heads in the design process. What's that noise look like? What's that creative space look like? And so this video was playing on two walls with this cacophony of sounds from the studio, from client calls, playing over that. And then there were headphones in the middle where you could very clearly hear more of our philosophy about how we approach design. And so I'll play just a short clip of this, and the noise is going to sound weird. So if the audio sounds off, don't worry. It's just a real short clip here. It's actually painted. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not the most comfortable place to live. So that was that. That I think is a little bit of an insight into our process. And then I thought with the rest of the time here, we just have a little bit of time. I thought I'd walk through one project in a little more detail that we did for the Boy Scouts of America. And I think I like this project for a couple reasons. One is because of the breadth of the work that we did from them, from creating a visual identity to crafting a story to building exhibits. We directed a film for this. But the second reason is probably more important, and it's that it's not elitist design. This design was really for everybody. from whatever background, whatever state you lived in. It was not elitist design, for lack of a better way to describe that. And certainly the Boy Scouts have not been without a lot of controversy. And I think as a studio, we struggled at times with things that were happening within that organization. But this project was also in the heart of coal country. And we're talking about new energy and sustainability here. And so it was pretty amazing that we were able to do that. And so what it was Methuen, which is an architecture firm up in Seattle, had designed on this 10,000 acre property in West Virginia, a former strip mine mountaintop. They had designed this building that was a net zero building, so it would, on the roof, all its energy came from solar and wind power. All the water that it used came from rain capture, and all the waste that it created became nutrients for the surrounding landscape. In fact, I think the water was so clean from the toilets afterwards that they had talked about piping it back into the water fountains. And I don't think that happened, but it's pretty amazing. And so they came to us and said, we want you to tell the story of sustainability to these, 12 to 18-year-old scouts who, by the way, were on their way to all the zip lining, rock climbing, mountain biking, all these adventure activities. And our first thought was like, okay, how are we going to capture their attention even for 2 minutes with all those much more thrilling physical activities that they're trying to get to? And so I think the first thing we did was find sort of a big idea that would kind of an organizing principle for the building. And what that became was this idea of a tree in the forest that it generates all its own energy. It gets its energy from the sun. It captures the water that it needs from the rain, and all its leaf litter becomes fuel for the tree itself. So much like the way a tree works in the forest, our homes should work the same way. And so we developed this kind of mysterious icon here. And I should say this site that they were developing, 10,000 acres, it was basically a city. They were putting in a whole infrastructure of roads, multiple other buildings, campsites. This is where they have the jamboree every couple years. So there were campsites for 60,000 kids. It was a huge project, and they said if you ever see one of these dump trucks coming, and I'm not a small person, so that wheel is giant. They said if you ever see that coming, get out of the way because they cannot see you. So anyway, how do we create some intrigue and get people to the building? And one thing we did was we created these what looked like the typical trailhead post, but we put these somewhat mysterious poems on them. And this one said, "Who knew a tree could be so waste-free?" So there's these incremental messages that led up to the entry where you see that mysterious crest. And then as you go into the building, the exhibits that explained all this kind of moved vertically through the building, up the stairs and in the different spaces. And the first thing that you come to is this rain chain. And initially there was a kind of a typical rain chain that captured the rain water off the roof and funneled it into the cistern for storage. But we said, well, rather than us just putting up a sign on a panel that says this is what's happening, why don't we make a sculpture it very sort of delicately in the camping cups that every scout carries with them, carefully transmit that water down the chain and into the cistern. And so that became this very sculptural, powerful, and memorable moment that all the scouts that get through there, they got that message. Um, and then, but at the same time, the signs, I think in the museum world, everyone will tell you that no one reads the signs, and I think there's something to that. But to get people to read the signs, and particularly these youth that were the audience here, we had a science writer write the copy for all the signs for all the exhibits, and then we had a friend of ours that worked at was a writer at 826 Valencia, which is Dave Eggers' writing nonprofit workshop center. He translated it into a kind of a humorous tone of voice and kind of a little bit off, and it was the kind of thing that you just had to read because it was so funny and weird, and that was really an important part of this. And then putting those messages in unexpected places. Here is the first level that you get to as you go up the first set of stairs, and this is where we took a tree from the site and suspended it horizontally, and then put all these stories and video and artifacts on it that explained how a tree worked in the forest. And there were various things you could interact with. Shows where Justin Bieber was born, and when the Berlin Wall came down in '89 after I graduated. And then there was a space where we created a film that was on these 3 video screens. It was sort of a science film meets Wes Anderson that told the general concepts in a very simple fashion of how the building worked. And here I'll just show you one clip. So we've got this film. So that's one little snippet of the film. Continuing further up, we created this nest showing how animals live somewhat sustainably in the forest. They don't destroy the world that they live in. And we used all these offcuts from the lumber mill that was actually put back into business by this entire Boy Scout project, which was a pretty amazing story in and of itself. Going up to the next level is where we really talk about how our homes, no matter what they are, could be more sustainable. So scouts would get these tips, again, in that somewhat humorous tone of voice. There was a wheel you could spin it was called the spin-a-pledge, and you could spin it and land on something that might tell you to carpool more or replace your lawn with native plants. And then in the center of the space was this home, basically this model of a house that had this 20-foot long rolling ball machine where all these balls were rolling through it, triggering different moments. And here you see this guy's pedaling this bike, and you can switch between LED light bulbs, incandescent light bulbs, and fluorescent light bulbs. And the bike gets much harder to pedal if you're on the incandescent bulb, and if you're on the LED, it's like a walk in the park. So again, just trying to find these ways, different ways to transmit this information. And this is a view of, it's very confusing, but it gives you a sense of the energy of what's happening inside that rolling ball machine. And there's fans, and there's all these different actions that are being triggered in there as the visitors on the outside power different things with their hands. And then finally on the top, every visitor was able to make a commitment to leading a more earth-friendly life, and tying this tag onto the structure at the very top where the wind turbines are, There was also this on the right side there was this LED that would translate the kilowatt hours that the building was generating every day into more understandable information, such as here it was saying that it had generated enough energy to toast 1,512 delicious slices of toast. So, and I think the best part is, again, when people really respond to it, I think that's the most rewarding part of this. And, you know, the fact that someone actually said the captions were hilarious, it meant that, you know, the visitors were actually reading them, and sort of disputed that fact by museums saying that nobody reads anything. So just to wrap up, you know, in thinking about this too, I came across this quote the other day that, you know, I thought was pretty great. I mean, I sometimes wonder if design and art, if I could do things easier or just not try to always reinvent the wheel. And I just really, this quote really resonated with me, that we're all sort of got this coast of utopia off in the distance, and we're sailing along, and we know we're probably never going to get to that perfection, but we keep trying to get there. And I think that's not only you know, for me or us as a design studio, but I think right now in the world that we're living in, and the challenges or opportunities that we have, we could all take a little bit of this this quote and apply it to our own world. And so, coming back full circle, where did I develop the discipline and skills to weather the hard charging world of design? I'm not sure, but Mr. Sturch here may have had something to do with it. I think York probably did. And being that this is an alumni event, you know, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about my work, but also reminisce about, you know, where I came from. And in case some of you are like, who is this old guy? Here's what I used to look like. I think this was York's first homecoming dance for the soccer team that I don't think we ever won a game. So thanks very much for listening. And that's it.
That's great. Thank you, Adam. And I'll let you know that Mr. Sturch actually still makes frequent visits to campus, or did when campus was open. Yeah.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
He's seems like a living legend in York history.
Oh boy. I'm not sure I was ever his favorite, but
well, let's see. I did want to just check in here. It doesn't seem like we got many questions. We did get Christine Edmonds, my colleague, says hello from Dr. Lee, which I think you saw that one. And as well as Susie Wenstrup saying hello from 1985 class.
All right. Hi, Susie. Dr. Lee, I need to reconnect with you for sure.
And I did want to ask you a couple questions myself. It seems like, you know, you've worked with some pretty incredible partners. And I was wondering, how do you choose your projects? Is there an ethical component? Is it just, you know, what makes you excited to wake up in the morning?
That's a good question. I mean, I definitely, you know, just speaking of that Boy Scout project, you know, I mean, there was definitely an ethical component to that. We had, you know, a gay person that was working on the project. There was all the, there was a lot of politics involved with it. It was pretty challenging, but we felt like on that one we could we felt like we could sort of get in the back door and promote the story of new energy ideas and sustainability, even though we're in coal country. And so that was pretty great. But we certainly would not take any project that we didn't feel um, like we could get behind what the company was doing. Um, and we've certainly come up against some challenges in places where we've struggled. And okay, this is a great project. We need the job. Um, so we might take that, but we have pretty strong feelings about not working for companies that we don't feel are doing good in the world. Um,
Which seems,
and a lot of our projects, sorry.
oh no, just seems to be more and more of a question these days for corporate partnerships.
It definitely is. And I think the ones that are more challenging are the companies where you don't really know. For example, Facebook. We've done a fair amount of work for Facebook over the years, and now I think it's becoming clear there's definitely some challenging parts of what they're not doing and that they should be doing. And so it's a little more clear. But before, it was a gray area, and you didn't really know. You think you're doing something good for the world, but so
And
definitely a front of mind.
oh, and it definitely looks like we've had a few questions come in. Um, so is it true that we have a couple of your designs on campus? Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, that's you do. There's at the new science building there is a donor wall that's actually a time capsule, which I think was it's sort of a cornerstone on the front of the building. It kind of wraps the corner there, and it's got all the names of the donors. And there's a time capsule in there that was loaded. I'm going to say that was 5 years ago, maybe, and that it will be opened on the 50th. But there's a countdown clock in there, counting down to the 25 years from when it was loaded, I believe. And I think we just recently did another um, pretty simple little sign for the new theater, which I have not yet been able to see. I'm looking forward to that.
it's exquisite. We had the last alumni reunion in the amphitheater, the kickoff event on Friday, and the sunset right behind the theater, and it was just an absolutely spectacular view. So one day you're gonna have to come check it out.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
And then we also have a question from Dr. Lee here. Um, awesome, Adam, you are always a creative force. Glad to see what you have done with it. How much would you credit your partnership with your success?
Um, a lot, a lot. I think my partner and we both kind of believe in the same things, but we have different strengths. And I think, it's a little bit like a marriage, and I think they're definitely ups and downs, and we actually uh, get in each other's business a lot. We argue about things pretty passionately a lot of the time, um, but I think that yields in better work, and I think we push each other. So I think the partnership has been really good. Yeah.
And then let's see, Christine Edmonds asks, do you have any advice for high school students who may be interested in the design field?
Um, my advice would be, boy, design has changed so much over the last 15 years. I think there's so many more opportunities in it. It's so much more valued by the business community because of what it can do. I would say that if you are interested in it, um, I would recommend, if you can, um, look at some of the great design schools that are around. If you're um, in California, there's Art Center College of Design in Los Angeles where I went. There's CCA up in San Francisco. There's Rhode Island School of Design. There's a lot of good design schools, but I think because it is such a competitive field, um, I think it does help to go to a good school for that. And I think, again, kind of like I was talking about in some of those slides, I think, it's design, and this may just be my perspective, it's about the ideas and presenting something new or something in a new way. It's not so much about learning the new software and using the latest gradient tool or Photoshop filter. I think it's really about ideas. And I think also a really important thing for students is to be a good designer, you need to have a great passion for the world and knowledge in different areas. It's not just about art. You have to kind of know or be able to research history and science and music and be exposed to the world. That's where the good ideas come from.
Absolutely. And let's see, Mitchell Evan here has a question. He says, thanks, great presentation. You showed a Kentucky museum video portraying the creative process as a noisy jumble. That seems real at one level, but also how about the quiet focus time? How would you describe that?
Um, I think that's what we're looking for. It's a little bit like a writer. It's like you look at the blank page and you get that writer's block. I think that's what we're looking for, is that quiet time, that moment of inspiration. And it rarely happens when you're sitting down at your sketchbook or at the computer. It happens when you're out mountain biking up the hill or something. And so I think we're looking for those moments, but I do feel like a lot of the time it's, it is that kind of feeling in your head, and you're trying to break through that to get that quiet time.
Well, great. It looks like we've answered all our questions here. And it was an excellent presentation. You've done some incredible projects with some really wonderful partners, it seems like.
Great.
Congratulations on your great career.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for having me. And I promise I'll be at the next reunion.
Well,
All right.
hopefully we can all socialize again soon.
Yeah, that would be good. We all want to do that.
Well, thanks so much, Adam, and stay in touch with all your new exciting projects.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining, and join me in about 15 minutes for our next presentation with Dr. Ibrahim Al-Marashi, and we'll be talking about the history of pandemics. So see everyone soon, and thanks so much, Adam, and thanks everyone for joining. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.